Right now, a silent operational crisis is unfolding in medical back offices. Current data shows that it is the clinical mechanism capturing vital, continuous data during the months between office visits. Since 2019, Medicare claims for remote patient monitoring have increased by more than 3,000%, exceeding $500 million in 2024. The trajectory continues upward. By 2025, approximately 71 million Americans will utilize these monitoring services. While the industry successfully deployed the hardware to track disease, it miscalculated the administrative burden. This volume of continuous data drops a massive processing requirement onto standard practice staff who were already at capacity. Many practices launch RPM programs assuming the technology handles the heavy lifting. In reality, the passive revenue stream requires constant manual intervention to remain compliant and effective. Managing a 200-patient panel requires a complete, dedicated 8-hour shift every single day. That time is consumed by morning dashboard reviews, alert triage, patient outreach calls, and recording every minute of activity for billing compliance. A single in-house RPM clinical monitor carries a fully loaded annual cost of approximately $60,800, including benefits and overhead. But relying on internal hires is brittle. If they leave, workflows stop immediately, creating gaps in care and lost billable encounters. This creates alert overload. Thousands of out-of-range device readings flood the EHR, making it impossible to distinguish between routine data and genuine clinical emergencies. This administrative pressure correlates with the 48.2% physician burnout rate reported by the AMA. Doctors are increasingly overwhelmed by the volume of unstructured data hitting their desks. When managed internally, RPM often transforms from a clinical asset into an administrative liability that aggressively consumes a practice's profit margins. Scaling an RPM program requires a structural shift. Practices must separate high-level clinical decision-making from the protocol-driven administration that supports it. In this model, two distinct paths emerge. The top path isolates tasks requiring clinical judgment, like diagnostics, which remain with the practice's physicians. The bottom path handles administrative execution, moving to a dedicated offshore team focused exclusively on daily RPM workflows. These offshore teams assume the burden of dashboard monitoring, triaging alerts according to practice rules, and performing the required monthly patient outreach calls. These virtual medical assistants work directly inside the practice's existing electronic health record. Working within the EHR eliminates the need for third-party platforms and ensures data remains secure. Implementation is designed for speed. A practice moves from initial contract to a fully operational, integrated team in 14 days. That 2-week window covers the discovery blueprint and secure EHR credentialing, followed by a rigid 10-day volume ramp-up to ensure the team handles the full patient load without errors. By disaggregating these workflows, a practice can scale its monitoring capacity without adding physical desks or increasing the internal HR burden. The financial viability of RPM rests on strict time-based CPT billing. Every interaction must be logged with a precise date, duration, and description of activity to be reimbursable. In-house staff often struggle with this, attempting to log their time retrospectively at the end of a shift. This constantly leads to forgotten billable minutes and highly inaccurate documentation. This comparison shows the documentation gap. The bottom timeline represents the outsourced model, logging every interaction in real time, creating a continuous record of billable work. On top, red gaps represent significant revenue leakage. Missing just one documentation cycle costs thousands in uncaptured revenue. Sloppy, retrospective documentation also creates high regulatory exposure. Incomplete access logs and inconsistent time entries are primary targets during routine compliance audits. Real-time documentation establishes a permanent, verifiable record that secures reimbursement and insulates the practice against the financial penalties of a compliance audit. As patient panels grow, the data-to-human ratio becomes a bottleneck. To maintain consistent response times across millions of data points, the infrastructure integrates machine intelligence. AI performs auto-categorization by classifying every incoming reading by urgency. This ensures that a human monitor knows exactly which files require immediate attention before they even open them. For abnormal readings, the system uses machine learning for exception handling. It flags edge cases that fall outside normal trends and diverts them directly to a supervisor for an immediate secondary review. In the background, automated compliance monitoring runs continuous HIPAA checks on all processing activity, catching potential security gaps in real time. Throughput optimization then actively balances the workload across the team. This ensures that even during massive volume spikes, the practice maintains its 99% task accuracy and consistent turnaround times. By layering AI over human administration, the system ensures a physician is only interrupted when the data indicates a genuine need for medical expertise. This robust administrative infrastructure exists to support the primary goal, achieving the life-saving clinical outcomes proven in medical literature. The impact is measurable. A 2025 meta-analysis found that proper RPM implementation reduces overall hospitalization risk by 14% across the general chronic population. The efficacy is even more pronounced for high-risk patients. This chart shows a 50% reduction in heart failure-related admissions for patients enrolled in a structured monitoring program. Secondary data from Sage Journal supports this, showing a 25% lower hospital readmission rate for heart failure patients who were consistently telemonitored. Simultaneously, primary care practices using these models have increased their Medicare revenue by 20%, allowing them to treat more patients without sacrificing care quality. These clinical results are the final product of an optimized, underlying administrative engine that processes the data required to trigger these interventions. The sustainability of an RPM program depends on the underlying unit economics of its infrastructure. This split screen shows the direct cost comparison. This infrastructure is accessible with no setup fees and no long-term contracts, removing the financial barriers to launching or scaling a program. With 129 million Americans requiring chronic care, the volume of health data will only increase. Practices must choose an operational model capable of handling that growth. Your practice provides the clinical expertise. Outsourcing the administrative burden is the most efficient way to make that mission sustainable for the long term.